than anything to do with TCP/IP. It was one of the most over-engineered protocols in human history. Guaranteed delivery, cost built in. It was sort of the bells, whistles, Rolls-Royce of internet-type protocols, and that's why you don't see it anymore. TCP was really simple, and Bitcoin was designed to be really simple so that you could build things on top of it. And that's the whole point. You won't see anything like these other protocols in the future. There's no war of sort of many of these surviving for a long time. Like we saw in the 90s. Anyone remember CompuServe? No, oh, we got a someone remembers CompuServe. So, old networks, they were around, they competed. How about MSN network? Microsoft's attempt, yeah. Microsoft was going to build their own internet. That went well. Yay, Bill.
But it's why we talk so much in the BSV world about restoring the original Bitcoin protocol and keeping it stable, right? Keeping a design that works with simplicity and allowing application developers like people in this room to build on top of it.
Which is actually a lesson on IPX. Novell NetWare was considered to be the big network that was going to take over the world. IBM and many others promoted it in typical IBM fashion. And version 3, version 4, version 4.1, version 5, they kept coming out. And every time it was not compatible. And people had to roll out the entire network and change all the systems and start all over. So people abandoned it. And that's what Core was trying to do. In 2013, I was trying to build a scalable node, and we spent months and then had to change it. And then we spent months and then had to change it. And no one seems to realize all these little tweaks they did to the protocol actually had massive repercussions. They changed everything drastically. And anyone trying to build on Bitcoin back in 2013 or 2014, that's why everyone gave up. They made it impossible to build. So what we're doing is we're going to make a simple, scalable protocol and lock it in place so you guys can actually build something. Because TCP/IP was set back in the 70s. It's been running since the 70s. And it runs really well. The only problem it had was it didn't have enough IP addresses because no one thought there'd be more than 4 computers on Earth. And now, well, 4.3 billion IP addresses wasn't enough. And that's why it's taking so long to go to IPv6. But we're not going to have that problem. Everything in Bitcoin scales enough, and we should run out of, well, sort of scalability somewhere around the year 40 billion or so. And I don't think we'll be on Earth then.
I hope not. Well, you probably will be as an artificial android at that time, probably. So Bitcoin's design, has a simple elegance, but it's also a combination, if people think about it, of many different disciplines to get this magic genius. Economics is a key part of Bitcoin's design, obviously technology, cryptography, game theory, right? And it takes probably a special brain to have seen the interwoven combination of all of these. And as someone who knows you and spends a lot of time with you, I know you are a student of many subjects, and it's, obviously widely reported you have a lot of academic degrees and educational background, which not everyone believes. But why don't you tell our audience here in a country that highly values education, why you are a student of so many subjects, and what are the variety of different subjects you have studied and have degrees in? Want to give us a bit of a sampling?
Apart from theology, computer science,
right.
Economics.
You have a doctorate in theology.
Yes.
Right.
Mathematics, statistics, art history, music. I actually have I did a thing studying Van Eyck, which is paintings of one of the Dutch masters, although he actually painted in Florence in Italy, but that's a different story. I'm a qualified mechanic, sommelier.
He could fix your cars.
I can. I've played farmer and rancher for a while.
Pumpkin farmer.
That too.
And currently, I know you have one law degree, and you are enrolled in not one, but 2 additional doctorate PhD programs.
So yes, I'm doing applied mathematics, and I'm also doing a Doctor of Law. So Doctor of Law is in the UK.
The UK.
So a bit of both.
Yeah, and what's your dissertation for your Doctor of Law degree going to be about?
So I'm actually writing on the law of money, on tracing, and how it applies to things like Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, because it's a way of focusing me. So rather than sit at home and decide to watch TV or whatever the latest thing is, replacing the Kardashians or whatever else, I'm not up to TV these days, so sorry.
Yeah, Satoshi's a Kardashian fan.
Am I?
No, you're not. Your daughter is.
Yeah, she is, but
Yes.
sigh. But anyway, I mean, it is a way of focusing. When you decide to tell people you're going to study and you put money into it and all the rest, then it's an incentive to keep going. So people don't realize that, but when you get home and you're tired and you're not studying, you're not in university anymore, you might stop because, well, there's always an excuse. So it's one of these things that gives you an excuse not to do. The same way people get a personal trainer. You get a personal trainer so that you go to the gym in the morning when you don't feel like it. Mm-hmm. Well, I do degrees so that I go home and study at night when I don't feel like it.
So you mentioned the subject of your dissertation. It's something you and I have been talking about a lot recently, which is that Bitcoin is traceable. And that means, contrary to what a lot of the Bitcoin world has thought for years, that it's not anonymous and that you can't just commit crime on the Bitcoin blockchain. In fact, it's the worst possible place to commit criminal activity because you leave an evidentiary trace. So we have been talking about educating not just businesses, but governments around the world and law enforcement agencies about how they actually can trace and stop crime on the blockchain. Why is that important to you?
I come from a background, not of what people see as intelligence now, but the old-fashioned way. My uncle was very high up in the Australian military and ran intelligence in Australia for a while, and I've got ties there, not in the NSA type way, not in the GCHQ type way. I don't want a world based on surveillance the way that some people see it now, where we watch everyone's metadata and look at what they're doing. I like a system that is based on human intelligence. The old-fashioned way of policing, the old-fashioned way of finding a crime and tracing it. We don't do that anymore because it's become so hard. With encryption, with everything else, it's become difficult to actually trace crimes. So instead of doing it the way that it used to be, of finding something and following the evidence, now we monitor everything. We monitor every phone call. We monitor every email. We remove everyone's privacy. I want a system where the records are there so that if you commit crime and someone gets caught, then the police can follow back and find the other people who worked with you and have real proof. Not someone framing you, not anything else, real proof. And to do that, we need a system that is at the same time private, but also traceable. A system where no one can just pick a random person and find what they've been doing. But if they do find a criminal, they can gather proof.
And we think that's very important for the developers and businesses and entrepreneurs in this room who are looking at where to build their projects and applications. We want a world where 5 billion people are using Bitcoin in some form, and businesses around the world. That requires building a system that governments and businesses have confidence in, and one that's not used for illegality. So traceability is an important part in our discussions with government agencies of something that they want to see more of.
Correct. And we want a system that encourages trade and finance and basically people to open up and buy and want to make money and know that their money is theirs. Not that it can be stolen, not that it's able to be taken by bribes and corruption. And even China's moving towards this. I know they call it the Communist Party over here, but I actually see it more like Singapore. I mean, in Singapore, you've got the same government now for a long time, and it has created a stable system that is effectively the one government, but it's still capitalist. And the same in Japan. In Japan, we've had the same, well, not we've, but Japan has had the same leading party in control for 50 years now. So you can say it's democracy, but it's a system where people choose something that gives a stable platform. And that's what I see China becoming. Not socialist the way that it was at the time of Mao, but the new government is one where it wants you to create and get richer. And I think that's great. And what they need, what your country needs, is to get rid of the corruption. And I think your government wants to do it. And I think every government that is worthwhile wants to do that. Why? Because everyone here will be better off. Without corruption, you can keep what you earn and not have to lose it. You can build something that you're proud of.
And the Bitcoin blockchain can help with that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So many people in the early Bitcoin years and other crypto people, sometimes we call them crypto anarchists, cypherpunks, view Bitcoin and cryptocurrency as anti-government, anti-bank, anti-establishment. How would you respond to them?
Every anarchist is really someone who wants power. Every totalitarian, everyone who wants to be in charge and oppress someone else, starts saying that they want nothing, that they want to get rid of government. But power, like everything else, abhors a vacuum. You can't have a system without power. What we need is a system where power moves and flows, where power doesn't stick at the top and enrich a few people, where it's not oligarchies, but anyone through merit can build their own lives, and not power based on where you were born or who you know or who you bribe. A system where power is really knowledge, power is hard work, and power is the willingness to risk everything, to throw it all on the line again and again until you succeed. That's what power should be based on. And that's really what you don't get when you have anarchy. Anarchy leads always to someone taking control. It leads to someone filling that power vacuum and someone oppressing everyone else.
So banks and governments actually have a role to play in Bitcoin. It's not designed to tear them down.
No. This is one of the big myths. No one seems to understand that if it fails, like all the banking that failed and all the problems in 2008, I started building Bitcoin well before that. I didn't start building Bitcoin in October 2008. I announced Bitcoin in 2008.
When did you start working on what became Bitcoin?
On what became Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Early 2007. When I started on the idea of a cryptocurrency was actually a decade before that.
So 20-some years of your life.
Yes.
20-some years. You mentioned that was one of the big misunderstandings or myths about Bitcoin, that it's anti-government, anti-bank. What are some of the other misunderstandings about Bitcoin are there out in the world that most frustrate you?
The one that most frustrates me is this idea that code is law. Lawrence Lessig came up with that in the early 90s, and people are running with it again. A legal scholar called Timothy Wu thoroughly debunked that in around 2003, pulled the whole concept of code as law apart and basically stripped it bare. And people have forgotten, and people haven't read these things. We've moved on, and code isn't law. I'm sorry. Law is flexible. Law is human. We don't want